The town of Raven Hollow was the kind of place where nothing ever seemed to happen. Nestled between dark forests and winding country roads, it was small enough that nearly everyone knew each other by name. The population barely crossed 12,000 people, and the biggest excitement most nights was a high school football game or a late-night diner conversation. People often said Raven Hollow felt frozen in time. Old street lamps cast soft yellow light across quiet roads. The only sounds after midnight were crickets, distant train horns, and the occasional passing truck heading down the highway. But beneath that peaceful surface, something darker was waiting. And on the night of October 14, 2016, that darkness finally revealed itself. Section 2, The Girl Who Never Arrived Home. At exactly 9:47 p.m., a young woman named Lily Dawson stepped out of the Raven Hollow Public Library. Lily was 22 years old. She was studying criminal psychology at a nearby university and had come home for the weekend to visit her parents. Friends described her as intelligent, curious, and unusually brave. She had a habit of asking questions most people avoided. That night, she had stayed late at the library working on a research paper. Outside, the air was cold and quiet. A thin fog drifted across the empty parking lot. Lily walked toward her car. Security cameras later showed her unlocking the door, placing her backpack inside, and sitting down behind the wheel. Then something strange happened. She didn't start the car. Instead, she looked up. Directly toward the far end of the parking lot. The camera angle couldn't show what she was seeing. But Lily stayed frozen in her seat for nearly 10 seconds. Then suddenly she locked the doors. Section 3, The Shadow in the Parking Lot. What happened next would later become one of the most analyzed security clips in the history of Raven Hollow. The camera captured movement in the darkness. At first, it looked like nothing more than a shadow shifting near the tree line. But as investigators enhanced the footage, they noticed something chilling. There was a person standing there. A tall figure. Completely still. Watching Lily's car. The distance between them was about 60 feet. Too far for the camera to capture details. But close enough that Lily had clearly noticed them. Inside the car, Lily seemed to panic. She reached for her phone. Investigators would later recover the message she sent at that exact moment. The message went to her older brother. It read, "Someone is watching me." Section 4, The Van That Appeared from Nowhere. Seconds later, headlights suddenly flashed across the parking lot. A vehicle had entered the area. But it wasn't Lily's car. It was a van. An old cargo van. Dark-colored. Possibly black or dark blue. The van slowly rolled into view and stopped between the trees and Lily's car. The shadowy figure disappeared behind it. For nearly 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the van moved again. But instead of leaving, it drove directly toward Lily's car. Section 5, The Last Footage of Lily Dawson. This was the final moment anyone ever saw Lily Dawson alive. The van stopped beside her car. For a brief moment, the driver's door opened. But the camera couldn't see the person clearly. Then something unexpected happened. Lily's car door opened. She stepped out. Investigators later debated this moment for years. Why would she leave the safety of her locked car? Had someone spoken to her? Threatened her? Or tricked her somehow? The camera showed Lily standing beside her car, facing the van. Then both figures moved out of frame. 30 seconds later, the van drove away. Lily's car remained in the parking lot. Empty. The next morning at 7:12 a.m., a librarian named Margaret Ellis arrived to open the building. She noticed Lily's car immediately. It was still parked exactly where it had been the night before. The driver's side door was slightly open. Margaret assumed someone had forgotten to close it. But when she walked closer, she saw something that made her stomach drop. Lily's phone was lying on the ground beside the car. The screen was cracked. And the last message still glowed faintly on the display. Someone is watching me. Section 7, the investigation begins. Within hours, the Raven Hollow Police Department had sealed off the entire parking lot. Detectives arrived. Forensic teams searched the ground. Reporters gathered outside the library. At first, police believed Lily might simply be missing. But once they reviewed the security footage, everything changed. Because the van in the video was not random. Detectives had seen that same vehicle before. In another case. A case that had terrified the region for nearly a decade. When detectives from the Raven Hollow Police Department reviewed the security footage again, one detail kept bothering them. The van. It wasn't just any vehicle. Detective Daniel Carter leaned back in his chair, staring at the paused frame on the monitor. "Zoom in on the license plate area," he said. The technician did. But the plate was barely visible. Covered in dirt. Almost as if someone had intentionally hidden it. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Because this wasn't the first time a dark cargo van had appeared in a missing persons case around Raven Hollow. In fact, it had appeared 4 times before. Section 9, the cold cases. Daniel walked down the hallway toward the records room. Inside were dozens of dusty case files. But he knew exactly which ones he was looking for. He pulled out 4 folders. Each one labeled missing person. Each one unsolved. And each one connected to the same strange detail. Witnesses had reported seeing a dark cargo van near the disappearance. The victims. Amanda Blake, disappeared 2011. Tyler Monroe, disappeared 2012. Sophie Randall, disappeared 2014. Marcus Hill, disappeared 2015. Now in 2016, a 5th person was gone. Lily Dawson. Daniel whispered to himself. This isn't coincidence. Section 10, the brothers' call. While detectives worked inside the station, Lily's family was living a nightmare. Her older brother Ethan Dawson had driven through the night to reach Raven Hollow. He burst into the police station early that morning. "Where is my sister?" he demanded. Detective Daniel Carter sat him down. "We're doing everything we can." Ethan pulled out his phone. "You want to know the last thing she sent me?" He showed them the message. "Someone is watching me." The room went silent. Investigators searched every road leading away from the library. One of them was Black Ridge Forest Road. A narrow road that disappeared deep into thick woods. It was rarely used at night. But something strange appeared on traffic cameras 2 miles away. At 10:02 p.m. a dark cargo van drove past the camera. The same shape. The same damaged bumper. And it was heading into the forest. Section 12, a chilling discovery. By afternoon, search teams entered the forest. Dogs sniffed the ground. Officers walked slowly through the trees. After nearly 2 hours, one officer shouted. "Detective! Over here!" Daniel Carter pushed through the brush. And there it was. Fresh tire tracks. Large ones. Cargo van tracks. They led off the road and deeper into the woods. But something else was there too. Footprints. 2 sets. One large. One smaller. The smaller one stopped suddenly. As if someone had been lifted off the ground. Section 13, the abandoned cabin. The tire tracks eventually led to a clearing. And inside that clearing stood an old wooden structure. An abandoned hunting cabin. Locals called it Black Ridge Hunting Cabin. It hadn't been used in years. The windows were broken. The door hung slightly open. Daniel slowly stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Dust. Rotting wood. And something metallic. Blood. Inside the cabin, the rooms were empty. But Daniel noticed something strange about the floor. One section of wood looked newer than the rest. He knelt down. Knocked on it. Hollow. "Get me a crowbar," he said. Minutes later the floorboard was lifted. Underneath was a hidden trapdoor. And beneath the trapdoor, a staircase leading down into darkness. Two officers followed Daniel down the stairs. Flashlights cut through the darkness. The basement was cold. Concrete walls. Chains hanging from the ceiling. And in the corner, a chair. Bolted to the floor. There were scratch marks on the walls. Deep ones. As if someone had tried desperately to escape. But Lily wasn't there. Instead, detectives found something even worse. 5 small boxes. Each one labeled with a name. Section 16, the names. Daniel slowly opened the boxes. Inside were personal belongings. A necklace. A wallet. A broken watch. A pair of glasses. Each item belonged to one of the missing victims. Including something Daniel recognized instantly. A small silver bracelet. It belonged to Lily Dawson. But the box was empty. Which meant one thing. She had been here. But she had already been moved somewhere else. Section 17, the symbol. On the wall behind the chair was something carved into the concrete. A strange symbol. A circle. With 3 lines crossing through it. Detectives photographed it immediately. But no one recognized it. Until Ethan Dawson saw the picture later that evening. His face turned pale. "I've seen that before," he said. "Where?" Daniel asked. Ethan whispered. "In Lily's research notes." Section 18, Lily's secret investigation. Before she disappeared, Lily had been researching unsolved crimes. Specifically the 4 missing persons cases connected to Raven Hollow. She believed something the police didn't. That all the disappearances were connected to a single killer. A killer who left behind the same strange symbol. And Lily had given that killer a name. The Midnight Passenger. Detective Daniel Carter sat quietly for several minutes. If Lily had been investigating the killer, then the killer may have noticed her. Which meant something horrifying. Lily hadn't been randomly abducted. She had been targeted. And whoever took her was intelligent. Careful. Patient. A predator who had evaded police for nearly 10 years. Section 20, the van returns. That night, while the investigation continued, something unexpected happened. A highway camera located outside Raven Hollow captured a familiar vehicle. A dark cargo van. The same damaged bumper. The same shape seen in the library footage. But this time something else appeared in the image. A person sitting in the passenger seat. The image was blurry. But investigators could clearly see one terrifying detail. The passenger's hands were tied. And the van was heading toward the state border. Which meant one thing. The killer was moving again. And Lily Dawson might still be alive. Inside the investigation room at the Raven Hollow Police Department, the atmosphere had changed completely. Detective Daniel Carter stared at the highway camera footage again and again. The van was unmistakable. The same vehicle seen outside the library where Lily Dawson disappeared. But now there was something else. A passenger. Someone tied up. Daniel leaned closer to the screen. "Enhance the passenger seat," he said. The technician zoomed in. The image became grainy. But the silhouette was clear. Long hair. A small frame. And hands tied together. Daniel whispered slowly. "That's her." Section 22, the highway route. Traffic analysts quickly traced the route of the van. It had passed 3 highway cameras after leaving Raven Hollow. Each camera told the same story. The van was heading south, toward the isolated region near Greyfall County. Greyfall was known for one thing: miles and miles of forest, remote roads, and abandoned mining towns. If the kidnapper reached that area, finding Lily would become nearly impossible. Section 23, The Killer's Confidence. Detective Daniel Carter noticed something disturbing about the driver's behavior. The van wasn't speeding. It wasn't trying to hide. Instead, it drove calmly past every traffic camera. Almost as if the driver knew the police wouldn't catch him in time. Almost as if he had done this before. Daniel slammed his hand on the desk. "He's confident," he said. "Too confident." Section 24, Lily wakes up. Meanwhile, inside the van, Lily's head slowly lifted. Pain pulsed through her temples. Her wrists were tied tightly with rough rope. The vehicle bounced along a rough road. For a few seconds she pretended to remain unconscious. Then she heard the driver speak. A calm, deep voice. "You're awake." Lily froze. The voice came from the darkness ahead. But she couldn't see the driver's face. Investigators discovered something new in the traffic data. After entering Greyfall County, the van disappeared from major highways. But one camera caught it turning onto a smaller road. A forgotten mining route called Iron Ridge Road. Locals avoided that road because it led to abandoned mines deep in the mountains. Places where no one would hear a scream. Section 31, The Midnight Passenger's Ritual. Inside the van, the driver finally spoke again. "You know what makes this interesting?" Lily stayed quiet. "You studied my work. My patterns. My rituals." The van drove deeper into darkness. "Tell me," the killer asked. "What do you think happens next?" Lily forced herself to answer. "You kill me." The driver laughed. "Oh no. Not yet." Section 32, The Truth About the Boxes. The killer continued talking. "You saw the boxes, didn't you?" Lily's stomach tightened. The boxes found in the basement cabin. Each one holding items from previous victims. "They're memories," the killer said. "Trophies. But every story deserves a final chapter. And yours will be the most interesting." Section 33, A Hidden Plan. Despite her fear, Lily was thinking carefully. The rope around her wrists wasn't perfect. The knot was loose. Slowly, carefully, she began twisting her hands. Trying to create space. Trying to loosen the rope. She knew one thing. If she didn't escape soon, she might never get another chance. Section 34, The Police Closing In. Meanwhile, police vehicles raced through the night toward Iron Ridge Road. Detective Daniel Carter led the convoy. His eyes stayed locked on the road ahead. Every minute mattered. Every mile counted. Because somewhere in those mountains, a killer was driving with Lily Dawson. After nearly an hour of driving, the van finally stopped. They had reached a place known as Iron Ridge Mine. The mine had been closed for more than 30 years. Rust covered the metal entrance gate. Old warning signs hung crookedly. The driver turned off the engine. Silence filled the night. Section 36, The Moment of Opportunity. The killer stepped out of the van. For the first time, Lily saw his silhouette clearly. Tall. Broad shoulders. Wearing dark clothing. But she still couldn't see his face. He walked around the vehicle. Toward the passenger door. And in that exact moment, the rope around Lily's wrists finally loosened. Section 37, A Risky Move. The door opened. Cold night air rushed inside. The killer grabbed Lily's arm. "Time to walk," he said. But as he pulled her out, Lily made a sudden move. She twisted her body and kicked the man with all her strength. Section 38, The Chase. The killer stumbled backward. For a brief second he lost balance. Lily ran straight toward the forest. Branches scratched her arms. Her lungs burned. But she kept running. Behind her, the killer shouted. And then she heard footsteps. He was chasing her. Section 39, Lights in the Distance. Just as Lily began to lose hope, something appeared through the trees. Lights. Flashing lights. Police vehicles. Detective Daniel Carter's team had finally reached Iron Ridge Road. Lily screamed as loud as she could. Help! The sound echoed through the forest. Section 40, The Killer Disappears. Officers ran toward the sound. Daniel Carter pushed through the trees. And suddenly he saw her. Lily Dawson. Covered in dirt. Barefoot. Terrified. But alive. Yet something else caught his attention. Fresh footprints in the mud behind her. Large ones. Leading deeper into the mountains. The killer had escaped. Once again. And somewhere in the darkness, the midnight passenger was still watching. When officers finally reached Lily Dawson, she collapsed to the ground. Detective Daniel Carter caught her before she fell. "You're safe now," he told her. But Lily shook her head. "No. I'm not." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Lily pointed toward the dark forest behind them. "He's still here." Section 42, The First Search. Within minutes, officers from the Raven Hollow Police Department and State Patrol spread through the woods near Iron Ridge Mine. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Helicopters circled above. Search dogs followed the fresh footprints. But the deeper they went into the forest, the stranger the trail became. Section 43, Footprints that Vanished. The dogs suddenly stopped near a rocky slope. Detective Daniel Carter knelt beside the ground. The footprints ended abruptly. It was as if the killer had simply disappeared. But Daniel noticed something unusual. Scratches on the rocks. And a thin metal ladder hidden behind thick bushes. He shined his flashlight down. A dark tunnel opened beneath the rocks. An old mining entrance. Section 44, The Hidden Tunnel. The tunnel was part of the abandoned underground system connected to Iron Ridge Mine. Few people knew about it. Most maps didn't even show it. Daniel whispered to the officers beside him. "He knows this place." Which meant the killer had probably planned his escape route long before that night. Section 45, Lily's Warning. Meanwhile, paramedics were treating Lily near the police vehicles. But she suddenly grabbed one officer's arm. "You don't understand," she said. "He's not just running." "What do you mean?" the officer asked. Lily looked toward the mountains. "He always comes back." Section 46, The Midnight Passenger's Game. When Detective Daniel Carter returned to the command area, Lily insisted on telling him something important. "I studied him," she said. "He likes control. He likes planning." Daniel listened carefully. "He doesn't make mistakes," Lily continued. "So if he let me escape?" Daniel's expression darkened. "You think he planned it?" Lily nodded slowly. Section 47, A Disturbing Possibility. If Lily was right, then something terrifying was happening. The killer hadn't simply failed. He had allowed her to escape. Which meant he wanted something else. Something bigger. Daniel looked toward the forest again. And for the first time that night, he felt the killer might actually be watching them. Section 48, A Message in the Van. Officers searched the abandoned van near Iron Ridge Road. Inside they found fingerprints, rope, and tools. But the most disturbing thing was written on the dashboard. A message carved into the plastic surface. 3 words. Round 2 begins. Section 49, the symbol returns. Next to the message was the same strange symbol Lily had discovered earlier. A circle with 3 lines crossing through it. The symbol connected every disappearance. Every victim. And every crime scene. Daniel photographed it again. But this time he noticed something new. The lines inside the circle looked like roads. 3 different roads. All meeting at one point. Section 50, the map theory. Back at the command center, Lily stared at the symbol on the screen. Her eyes widened. "That's not a symbol," she said. "It's a map." Daniel leaned closer. "What do you mean?" "The lines represent highways around Raven Hollow. And the center point." She pointed to the middle of the circle. "That's where he chooses his victims." Investigators overlaid the symbol onto an actual map. Lily was right. All 5 disappearances had occurred within the same triangular zone between 3 highways. And right at the center of that triangle was one location. An isolated roadside stop called Silver Pine Rest Stop. Section 52, a horrifying memory. Lily suddenly remembered something. "I've been there before," she said quietly. Daniel turned. "When?" 3 weeks ago. She explained that while researching the missing persons cases, she had visited the rest stop late at night. She had been taking pictures, writing notes, and watching the traffic. That's when she noticed a van parked across the road. A dark cargo van. Section 53, the moment he saw her. Lily continued her story. "The driver was sitting inside the van. At first I thought he was just resting. But then I realized." Daniel leaned forward. "What?" "He was watching me. For nearly 10 minutes. Neither of them moved. Then the van slowly drove away." Lily believed it was coincidence. But now she understood the truth. That was the moment the killer chose her. Section 54, the predator's mind. Detective Daniel Carter began to understand the psychology behind the crimes. The killer wasn't random. He observed people first. Studied them. Followed them. He only attacked when he was certain he had control. Which meant something else. If he had chosen Lily, he had likely been watching her for weeks. Section 55, the missing victims. Investigators reopened the cold cases of the earlier victims. Amanda Blake. Tyler Monroe. Sophie Randall. Marcus Hill. Every one of them had visited Silver Pine Rest Stop before disappearing. It was the killer's hunting ground. His observation point. His trap. While examining the van again, officers discovered something hidden under the driver's seat. A small notebook. Inside were dozens of handwritten notes. Dates. Locations. Descriptions of people. One page contained a list titled Potential Passengers. And at the very top of that list was Lily Dawson's name. Section 57, the next target. But Lily wasn't the only name on the list. There were several others. Strangers. Travelers. Late-night drivers. People who had unknowingly crossed paths with the killer. And one name had been circled. A name no one expected. Detective Daniel Carter's name. Section 58, the hunter becomes the target. Daniel stared at the page in silence. "Why would he target me?" he asked. Lily answered slowly. "Because you're the only one getting close to him." The killer wasn't just hunting random victims anymore. Now he was playing a different game. A game with the police. A game with Daniel Carter. Section 59, a shadow watching. Later that night, while officers continued searching the mountains near Iron Ridge Mine, something moved high above them. A figure standing on a distant ridge, watching the flashing police lights below. The man stood perfectly still, hidden in darkness. The midnight passenger had not left. He was studying them, learning their patterns, waiting. Section 60, The Real Beginning. Back at the police station in Raven Hollow, Detective Daniel Carter pinned every clue onto a large investigation board. Photos, maps, victims, symbols. And in the center of the board he wrote 3 words. The Midnight Passenger. Daniel looked at Lily Dawson. "This ends now," he said. But Lily felt a cold chill. Because she knew something Daniel didn't yet understand. For the killer, this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. 2 days after the events near Iron Ridge Mine, the small town of Raven Hollow felt different. The streets were quieter. People locked their doors earlier. Gas stations and roadside stops stayed nearly empty after dark. Everyone was talking about one thing. The mysterious serial predator known as the Midnight Passenger. But inside the Raven Hollow Police Department, the pressure was far greater than fear. Detective Daniel Carter knew the killer was escalating. And the clock was ticking. Section 62, Lily's Memory. Meanwhile, Lily Dawson sat quietly in an interview room. Detectives hoped she might remember something important about the man who kidnapped her. "Did you ever see his face?" Daniel asked gently. Lily shook her head. "No, he kept the lights off in the van. But I noticed something." Daniel leaned forward. "What?" His voice. Section 63, The Voice Clue. Lily described the man's voice in detail. It was calm. Educated. Not rough or aggressive like most criminals she had studied. He sounded like someone who reads a lot, she explained. Like a professor, or a teacher. That clue changed the direction of the investigation. The killer wasn't just some random drifter. He was intelligent. Possibly someone living an ordinary life in or near Raven Hollow. Section 64, The Notebook Analysis. Forensic teams continued examining the notebook found inside the van. The pages were filled with notes about people, times, travel routes, habits. But one section caught Daniel Carter's attention. It was labeled Observers. Under that title were several names. People who had noticed the van. People who had looked suspiciously at the driver. And every name on that list had one thing in common. They were all still alive. Section 65, A Terrifying Pattern. Daniel realized something chilling. The killer wasn't just tracking victims. He was also tracking witnesses. People who had unknowingly seen him during previous crimes. The list included gas station workers, travelers, and security guards. But one name stood out. Mark Benson. A night shift attendant at Silver Pine Rest Stop. Section 66, Too late. Police immediately drove toward the rest stop. But when they arrived, something was wrong. The lights inside the building were still on. The front door was open. Daniel stepped inside slowly. "Mark," he called. No answer. Then one of the officers pointed toward the back storage room. And what they saw inside confirmed their worst fear. Mark Benson was gone. Section 67, The New Abduction. Security footage from Silver Pine Rest Stop revealed the terrifying truth. At 1:13 a.m., the dark cargo van returned. The driver entered the building calmly. He spoke to Mark Benson for nearly 2 minutes. Then the camera briefly lost focus. When the image cleared again, both men were gone. And the van drove away. Section 68, The Killer's Message. On the counter of the rest stop, detectives found a folded piece of paper. The message was written neatly. Almost politely. It said, "Every witness becomes a passenger eventually." Under the sentence was the same symbol. The circle with 3 lines. The signature of the midnight passenger. Section 69, The Psychological Trap. Lily studied the message carefully. "He's escalating," she said. Daniel nodded. "He wants attention." But Lily disagreed. "No. He wants to challenge you." Daniel looked confused. "Why me?" Lily pointed to the notebook again. "Because he wrote your name. To him, you're not just a detective. You're his opponent." Section 70, The Profile. Using Lily's research and police data, the team began creating a psychological profile. The midnight passenger was likely male. Between 35 and 50 years old. Highly intelligent. Organized and patient. Comfortable traveling long distances at night. Living a normal life during the day. But one trait stood above all others. He enjoyed games. Late that evening, the phone rang inside Daniel Carter's office at the Raven Hollow Police Department. The number was unknown. Daniel answered cautiously. "Detective Carter." For a moment, there was silence. Then a familiar voice spoke. Calm. Controlled. "Good evening, Detective." Daniel froze. He recognized the voice immediately. It was the same voice Lily had described. Section 72, The Midnight Passenger Speaks. "Who is this?" Daniel asked. The voice laughed softly. "You already know." Daniel's heart pounded. "You won't get away with this," he said. The man sounded amused. "I already have." Then he added something chilling. "But I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling to invite you." Section 73, The Invitation. Daniel's grip tightened around the phone. "Invite me where?" The killer answered slowly. "To finish the story. You've been studying me. And I've been studying you." He paused. "Now it's time to see who understands the game better." Section 74, The Deadline. The killer gave Daniel a time. Midnight. And a location. An abandoned roadside motel outside Greyfall County called Redwood Motel. "If you want the witness alive," the killer said, "come alone." Then the line went dead. Section 75, The Impossible Choice. Daniel stared at the phone in silence. Police protocol was clear. You never negotiate with a serial killer alone. But if the killer was telling the truth, then Mark Benson might still be alive. Daniel turned toward Lily. "What do you think?" She answered immediately. "It's a trap. He wants control," Lily explained. "He wants you to walk into his world." Daniel nodded. "But if I don't go? Mark dies." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the stakes. At 11:40 p.m., Detective Daniel Carter left the police station in Raven Hollow. Officially, he was going alone. Unofficially, several police units prepared to follow from a distance. Because no one trusted the midnight passenger. Section 78, The Deserted Motel. The road to Redwood Motel was dark and empty. The motel had been abandoned for years. Broken windows. Flickering signs. A perfect place for a trap. Daniel parked his car slowly. And stepped out. The wind moved quietly through the empty parking lot. Section 79, The Waiting Door. One motel room door stood slightly open. Room number 6. A dim light flickered inside. Daniel placed his hand on his weapon. Then slowly pushed the door open. "Mark," he called. No response. Just silence. Section 80, the second message. Inside the room, Daniel found a chair in the center. And tied to that chair was a tape recorder. When Daniel pressed play, the killer's voice filled the room. "Congratulations, detective. You made it to round 2. The recording paused. Then the voice spoke again. "But the real game is just beginning." Inside room 6 of the abandoned Redwood Motel, Detective Daniel Carter listened carefully as the tape recorder continued playing. The voice of the midnight passenger was calm. Almost cheerful. "Detective," the voice said, "you've already made your first mistake." Daniel looked around the room. The place was empty. No sign of Mark Benson. But the killer continued speaking. "You came alone, just like I hoped." Section 82, a hidden camera. Daniel suddenly noticed a small red light blinking on the wall. A camera. The killer was watching. Somewhere nearby. Daniel stepped closer to the camera. "If you're watching," he said, "then you're closer than you think." The voice on the recorder laughed softly. "Of course I am." Section 83, the countdown begins. The tape continued. "You have 10 minutes, detective. Find the right door, and maybe your witness survives." Daniel's eyes scanned the motel hallway outside. There were 12 rooms. All abandoned. All silent. And somewhere inside one of them, Mark Benson might still be alive. Section 84, Room 3. Daniel moved quickly to Room 3. The door creaked open slowly. Inside he found broken furniture and dust. But something else caught his attention. Footprints on the floor. Fresh ones. Large footprints. The killer had been there recently. But the room was empty. Section 85, a distant sound. As Daniel stepped back into the hallway, he heard something faint. A sound coming from farther down the building. A muffled banging noise. Someone hitting something repeatedly. Daniel followed the sound toward room 9. Section 86, the bound witness. Inside room 9, Daniel finally found him. Mark Benson was tied to a chair. A cloth was wrapped around his mouth. Daniel rushed forward and cut the ropes. "Are you okay?" he asked. Mark nodded weakly. But before Daniel could help him stand, the lights suddenly went out. The entire motel plunged into darkness. Only moonlight filtered through broken windows. Mark whispered nervously. "He was here, he was watching me." Daniel tightened his grip on his flashlight. "Did you see his face?" Mark shook his head. "No, he always stayed in the shadows." Section 88, a door slam. Suddenly a loud slam echoed through the hallway. Another door closing somewhere in the building. Daniel and Mark both froze. The killer was still inside the motel. Watching. Waiting. Playing with them. Section 89, the shadow in the hall. Daniel slowly stepped into the hallway. At the far end, something moved. A tall silhouette. Standing completely still. For just a moment, the moonlight revealed the figure. Then the shadow disappeared around the corner. Section 90, the chase begins. Daniel ran. His footsteps echoed through the empty motel. He turned the corner. But the hallway was empty. Only one door remained slightly open. Room 12. Section 91, the killer's room. Daniel pushed the door open carefully. Inside was a small desk. Maps spread across the surface. Photos pinned to the walls. Pictures of highways. Gas stations. Travel routes around Raven Hollow and Greyfall County. This room had been the killer's temporary planning base. Section 92, the photograph. Among the papers, Daniel found something disturbing. A photograph of himself. Taken outside the Raven Hollow Police Department. It was recent. Which meant the killer had been watching him too. Section 93, a new target. Next to the photo was another image. This one shocked Daniel even more. It was a picture of Lily Dawson. Taken just one day earlier. Outside the hospital where she was recovering. The killer hadn't given up. He was still hunting her. Section 94, the window escape. Suddenly a loud crash came from the back of the room. Daniel turned quickly. The window was shattered. Cold air rushed inside. Outside, fresh footprints led into the dark forest behind the motel. The killer had escaped again. Before leaving the room, Daniel noticed writing on the wall. Spray painted in black letters. "You're learning, detective." Below the message was the symbol again. The circle with 3 lines. The mark of the midnight passenger. Section 96, Mark's terrifying story. Back outside the motel, Mark Benson told police what happened. He walked into the rest stop like a normal traveler, Mark said. He asked for coffee. And then suddenly, everything went dark. Mark paused. He told me something before leaving. Daniel leaned closer. What did he say? Section 97, the next passenger. Mark repeated the words slowly. He said the next passenger would be special. Daniel's stomach tightened. What else? Mark looked directly at him. He said the next passenger would be someone important. Section 98, Lily in danger again. At that exact moment, back in Raven Hollow, something strange was happening outside the hospital where Lily Dawson was staying. A dark vehicle slowly drove past the building. Not a van this time. A black sedan. But the driver stopped briefly near the entrance. Watching. Waiting. Section 99, the Predator evolves. The midnight passenger had changed tactics. He knew the police were watching for the van. So he abandoned it. Now he could move freely again. Blend into traffic. Disappear in plain sight. The hunt had entered a new phase. Section 100, the true game. Later that night, Detective Daniel Carter returned to the investigation board at the Raven Hollow Police Department. He pinned the latest photos to the wall. The motel. The symbol. The new car. Then he looked at Lily Dawson. This isn't random anymore, he said. He's playing a game with us. Lily nodded slowly. Yes. And now we're inside his story. But neither of them realized something terrifying. Because somewhere in the darkness outside Raven Hollow, the midnight passenger was already choosing his next passenger. And this time, the victim would change everything. Days passed in Raven Hollow, but the midnight passenger was nowhere to be found. Detective Daniel Carter pored over maps, photographs, and the killer's notebook again. Each clue revealed one thing: the killer's intelligence was beyond anything they had seen. He had already studied them, just as they had studied him. And now, the hunter's patience was a weapon. Section 102, Surveillance Titans. Lily Dawson agreed to help the police track the killer. Officers installed cameras around her recovery location. GPS trackers were hidden in nearby streets and alleyways. Even with every precaution, the midnight passenger seemed aware. No traces. No sightings. Only a faint feeling that someone was watching. Section 103, Hospital Shadows. Late one night, a shadow appeared near the hospital entrance. A man in a black coat lingered in the parking lot. Lily noticed him first. Daniel's team spotted the reflection in the glass. The man disappeared as quickly as he appeared. The message was clear: he was watching again. Section 104, Hidden Patterns. Using the killer's previous crimes and notes, Daniel mapped a grid of possible locations. Each crime site formed a rough circle with intersecting lines. The same symbol kept appearing in photographs, sketches, and maps. Every line represented a route. Every intersection a potential target. The midnight passenger was no longer random. He was precise. Section 105, New Clues. A week later, a missing persons case from a neighboring town matched the killer's pattern. The victim had vanished near a late-night rest stop. The midnight passenger's signature symbol was found etched into a nearby tree. Daniel realized, the killer's reach was widening. He wasn't confined to Raven Hollow anymore. Section 106, The First Lead. Investigators discovered that several gas stations in the region had suspicious security footage. A dark sedan, the same car seen near the hospital, was captured multiple times at night. Daniel pointed at the screen. "That's him," he said. Driving unnoticed, observing, choosing his next passenger. Section 107, The Past Revealed. Meanwhile, Lily remembered an old article she had read years ago. It mentioned a man who disappeared from Raven Hollow decades ago. Some locals claimed he was unstable but brilliant. Could it be the same person? Daniel nodded slowly as he listened. The midnight passenger's motives were tied to history, perhaps a long-buried grudge. Section 108, The Surveillance Breach. Cameras at the hospital were mysteriously disabled one night. A black sedan was spotted outside. No one saw anyone exit the vehicle. The midnight passenger had again infiltrated their safety. Section 109, A Secret Tunnel. Investigators recalled the tunnels beneath Redwood Motel. They believed he might be using similar hidden routes elsewhere. Daniel considered the possibility, the killer knew the region better than anyone. And he had an escape plan for every trap. Section 110, Psychological Profiling. Lily and the FBI profiler worked late into the night. They concluded the killer studied victims before abducting. Left psychological games behind. Was motivated by control and observation. Chose victims who were curious or smart. This meant he respected intelligence in his victims, and feared detection. Section 111, A New Target Emerges. A teenager, Emily Ross, disappeared near a rest stop. The pattern was unmistakable. Daniel knew the killer was escalating. Each move was calculated. Each victim a chess piece. Daniel's team rushed to the coordinates where Emily was last seen. Hours passed. The area was dense woods. No van. No sedan. Only silence. The midnight passenger had vanished again. Section 113, Hidden Messages. Emily's notebook was found near the parking lot. Inside was a note, written in small handwriting. The game is only beginning. The symbol appeared once more. Daniel understood, the killer wanted them to see his work. To feel powerless. Emily's notebook was found near the parking lot. Inside was a note, written in small handwriting. The game is only beginning. The symbol appeared once more. Daniel understood, the killer wanted them to see his work. To feel powerless. Section 114, Lily's Observation. Lily noticed something strange in the symbol pattern. It wasn't just random. The lines mirrored local roads. Highways. Rest stops. Abandoned properties. Every clue led somewhere, the killer's next target. Section 115, A Dangerous Theory. Lily whispered to Daniel, he's planning something big. Daniel nodded grimly. He's not just taking passengers anymore. He's orchestrating fear. Section 116, The Surveillance Network. The midnight passenger seemed aware of every camera, every GPS tracker, every patrol. Daniel realized, he had been studying the investigators as meticulously as they studied him. Every move was calculated. Section 117, The Ambush. At the edge of Grayfall County, a police unit spotted a suspicious sedan. They followed it at a distance. Suddenly, the car sped into a hidden dirt road. Officers lost it in the dense forest. The killer had anticipated pursuit. Section 118, A Close Call. The unit found a makeshift campsite. Tracks suggested someone had been there recently. Emily Ross was nowhere to be found. But fresh footprints indicated she was alive. The midnight passenger had left a taunting trail. Section 119, The Unexpected Clue. Inside the camp, Daniel found a backpack. It belonged to Emily. Inside was a small notebook with one sentence. "Catch me if you can." The handwriting was familiar. The symbol was etched in the corner. Section 120, A Hidden Connection. Daniel noticed an old photograph tucked inside the notebook. It showed a man standing near the redwoods years ago. A young Daniel Carter appeared in the background, unaware of the presence. The killer's obsession went back decades. Mapping all the crimes revealed a terrifying circle. Each location led back to the same region. The midnight passenger had never left the area entirely. His hunting ground was precise. Controlled. Section 122, A Voice in the Darkness. Late one night, Daniel received another call. A voice familiar and chilling. "Detective, you've done well. But the next move is yours." The line went dead. No number. No trace. Section 123, The Trap is Set. The next day, all evidence pointed to a remote cabin in the forest. The killer had prepared something. A confrontation was inevitable. Section 124, Preparations. Daniel and a specialized task force prepared carefully. All precautions taken. All possible entrances covered. But the midnight passenger had already anticipated this. Section 125, The Cabin. The forest grew thicker as they approached. A cabin appeared in a clearing. It was silent. No signs of life. Yet inside, the killer had set up his lair, photographs, maps, symbols, and tools. Section 126, The First Face-to-Face. Daniel entered cautiously. A shadow moved in the corner. The killer emerged from darkness. Tall. Calm. Calculated. Finally, face revealed. The midnight passenger. Section 127, Identity Clues. The man introduced himself casually. His tone polite, almost charming. Daniel noticed subtle details. Clean-shaven. Ordinary clothes. A briefcase. But the eyes, cold and calculating. The predator who had terrorized the region for months. Section 128, The Conversation. The midnight passenger spoke calmly. "You've been close," he said. "You've watched. Studied. Calculated. But I've been watching too." Daniel responded firmly. "This ends tonight." The killer smiled. Does it? Or does the real story only begin now? Section 129, The Hidden Tunnel. Suddenly, a hidden door behind the cabin swung open. Dark stairs descended underground. The killer stepped back. Daniel realized, the game had only just moved to its final phase. As Daniel and the task force prepared to descend, Lily called. "Detective, check this." On her laptop, a new clue appeared. The midnight passenger had left a trail of photos online. Showing multiple locations. Multiple potential victims. And one chilling realization dawned on Daniel. The midnight passenger was never alone. There might be an accomplice. The real nightmare was only just beginning. Detective Daniel Carter led the team down the dark tunnel beneath the redwood cabin. The air was damp, cold, and smelled of decay. Every footstep echoed, every shadow seemed alive. Lily Dawson monitored remotely, her face tense. "The killer's been here before," she whispered into her headset. Daniel nodded. He knows this place like the back of his hand. Section 132, The First Clues Underground. Torches revealed old footprints, scuff marks, and discarded belongings. Daniel found a torn piece of a notebook, identical to the one from the van. The midnight passenger had left a breadcrumb trail intentionally. Psychological warfare, Daniel murmured. Section 133, A Voice from the Shadows. Suddenly, a whisper echoed through the tunnel. "You've come far, detective." The team froze. No one could see the speaker. Then a single, low chuckle bounced off the walls. Section 134, Hidden Chambers. The tunnel split into multiple chambers. Maps, sketches, and photographs covered the walls, forming a meticulous timeline of his crimes. It was a chilling museum of the midnight passenger's mind. Daniel's stomach sank. This is madness, all of it documented. Section 135, The First Trap. A sudden click. Floor panels shifted, revealing a hidden pit. Daniel barely jumped aside as the officer behind him fell in, saved by a harness. The midnight passenger had rigged the tunnels with traps, ensuring only he could move freely. Section 136, The Accomplice. Daniel noticed two sets of footprints, one larger, one smaller. Lily analyzed security footage. There's someone helping him, an accomplice. Daniel realized the nightmare had a new layer. The midnight passenger wasn't working alone. A dark figure darted across the far chamber. Daniel raised his flashlight. The figure paused, then disappeared into another tunnel branch. "Careful," Daniel warned. "He's toying with us." Section 138, Messages Everywhere. The walls were covered in messages. Time is fleeting. Every step counts. The passenger decides who lives. Each phrase was a psychological test. Daniel felt the weight of each word. Section 139, The First Encounter. A figure emerged, tall, calm, confident. The midnight passenger himself. "Detective Carter," he said. "You're persistent." Daniel's team raised their weapons. The man raised his hands slowly. "I want to play, not fight." "Not yet." Section 140, The Rules of the Game. The midnight passenger explained the rules of his twisted game. Each move by the police was being observed. Victims were pawns, and witnesses were tools. Only those who understood his logic survived. Daniel realized the danger wasn't only physical, it was mental. Section 141, Emily's Trail. Emily Ross's trail led deeper into the tunnels. The killer had left her unconscious but alive. Her backpack and personal items marked the path. Daniel knew every second counted. Section 142, An Underground Labyrinth. The tunnel system stretched for miles. Branches, dead ends, and hidden chambers created a labyrinth. The midnight passenger had memorized it all. One wrong turn could be fatal. Section 143, Psychological Warfare Intensifies. The walls contained messages that forced the team to reflect. Do you trust your instincts? Are you brave enough to follow the passenger? Lily monitored remotely, feeling Daniel's stress rise. Section 144, A Mock Room. Daniel entered a room that resembled Room 6 from the Redwood Motel. A chair. A tape recorder. A message. You almost had it. The killer was mocking them. Section 145, A Narrow Escape. A hidden trapdoor nearly collapsed beneath Daniel. He barely avoided falling into a spiked pit. The midnight passenger's mind was everywhere, predicting every step. Section 146, The Clues Align. Pieces of the puzzle began to align. Abductions followed a triangular pattern. Symbols corresponded to rest stops, tunnels, and highways. His accomplice handled surveillance, leaving Daniel vulnerable. Section 147, The Accomplice Appears. Suddenly, a smaller figure emerged from the shadows, quick, agile, and deliberate. Lily analyzed security. It was someone who had never been caught before. Daniel realized the accomplice had been guiding victims to the midnight passenger. Section 148, The Cornered Killer. Daniel tried to corner the midnight passenger in a central chamber. The man was calm, smiling. "You think this is over?" he asked. "It's just round 3. Section 149, A Sudden Alarm. A hidden siren blared throughout the tunnels. Red lights flashed. The midnight passenger had triggered a trap, forcing Daniel to retreat. Emily's safety was in jeopardy. Section 150, Messages to Daniel. Another tape recorder. "You can follow my trail, but you cannot catch me yet. The passenger decides." Daniel understood he was part of the killer's game, not just a pursuer. Section 151, The Underground Hideout. The tunnels led to a massive chamber, lined with photographs and maps. The killer had been living here temporarily, coordinating every crime meticulously. Section 152, Emily's Location. Using clues, Daniel deduced Emily was held in a smaller, isolated tunnel section. He directed his team carefully, avoiding every trap. Section 153, The First Rescue Attempt. Daniel reached Emily's location. She was alive but terrified. "Don't look back," Daniel whispered. Suddenly, a figure moved in the shadows, the accomplice. Section 154, The Accomplice Captured. A brief struggle ensued. Officers managed to restrain the accomplice. Under interrogation, the accomplice revealed the killer's real name, his motivations, the locations of other hidden tunnels. Section 155, The Final Chamber Ahead. The accomplice indicated the killer's main chamber was just ahead. Daniel prepared carefully, knowing the midnight passenger was waiting. Section 156, The Hidden Passage. A hidden door led to the final chamber. The walls were lined with photographs of past victims and police officers. The killer had documented everything. Section 157, The Face of the Predator. The midnight passenger emerged, composed and confident. Daniel's heart raced. The man's identity was finally revealed, someone the town had considered ordinary. A chilling reminder that monsters can hide in plain sight. Section 158, Psychological Battle. The killer tried to manipulate Daniel, using logic and riddles. Every question, every statement, was designed to test his decision-making. Daniel knew he had to remain calm. Section 159, The Tense Standoff. Daniel and the killer faced off in the final chamber. Weapons drawn, but the real battle was mental. One wrong move could end Emily's life, or Daniel's. Section 160, The Cliffhanger Ending. As tension peaked, a sudden explosion shook the chamber. Smoke filled the air. Daniel and Emily were separated from the killer. A final message was left behind. The true journey has only begun. The midnight passenger is always watching. Lily whispered into her headset, "He's not finished, not by a long shot." The explosion inside the tunnel shook the ground beneath the old forest near Raven Hollow. Detective Daniel Carter struggled to stand as dust and smoke filled the underground chamber. "Emily," he shouted. Somewhere in the darkness, a weak voice answered. "I'm here." Emily Ross was alive. But the midnight passenger was gone again. Section 162, The Escape Route. Daniel's flashlight revealed a narrow crack in the rock wall. Behind it was a hidden escape tunnel. The killer had planned for this moment. He had detonated the explosion only to cover his escape. Daniel clenched his fists. He's slipping away again. Section 163, The Accomplice Speaks. Back above ground, officers were interrogating the captured accomplice. The young man finally spoke. "He's not trying to escape forever," he said. "He wants the story to end, somewhere meaningful." Where? An officer demanded. The accomplice whispered one word. Home. Section 164, a forgotten address. Investigators traced the accomplice's information to an old address in Greyfall County. A house that had been abandoned for nearly 20 years. It once belonged to a teacher named Harold Vance. Daniel felt a chill run through his spine. That name had appeared in Lily's research notes before. Section 165, Lily's realization. At the police station in Raven Hollow, Lily Dawson searched through old newspaper archives. Then she froze. I found him. She turned the screen toward the officers. A photograph from 1998. A school teacher. Quiet. Intelligent. Respected by the community. Harold Vance. Section 166, The Past Crime. The article revealed something disturbing. Years earlier, Harold Vance had been investigated after a student mysteriously disappeared. But the case was never solved. No evidence. No witnesses. The investigation faded away. But Lily whispered quietly. He never stopped. Section 167, The Killer's Philosophy. Daniel began to understand the killer's twisted logic. Harold Vance believed society ignored certain people. Lonely travelers. Night workers. People passing through life unnoticed. He called them passengers. And in his mind, he was the driver deciding their fate. Section 168, The Final Destination. The abandoned Vance house stood deep in the woods outside Greyfall County. Police surrounded the area carefully. Daniel stepped out of the vehicle. He knew this place mattered. This was where the midnight passenger's story began. And where it would likely end. Section 169, The Empty House. The door creaked open. Inside, the house looked frozen in time. Dust-covered furniture. Old books stacked on shelves. But one room was different. Its walls were covered with maps and photographs. The killer had returned home. Section 170, The Final Message. On the center table lay a single note. Daniel picked it up slowly. It read. Detective Carter, welcome to the last chapter. Below the sentence was the familiar symbol. The circle with 3 lines. Section 171, A sound upstairs. Suddenly a floorboard creaked above them. Daniel raised his weapon. He's here, he whispered. The team moved carefully up the stairs. The tension was unbearable. Section 172, The Attic Door. At the end of the hallway stood a locked attic door. Light flickered beneath it. Daniel kicked the door open. The room was filled with photographs of every victim. And in the center stood Harold Vance. The midnight passenger. Section 173, The Final Conversation. Harold Vance looked calm. Almost relieved. So you finally made it, he said. Daniel kept his weapon steady. It's over. Vance shook his head. No, detective. Now the story makes sense. Section 174, The Confession. Vance began explaining his crimes. Every victim had been chosen carefully. People who crossed his path at night. People who seemed invisible to the world. To society, he said quietly. They were passengers. Section 175, Lily's Role. Vance smiled slightly. And Lily Dawson. She was different. Daniel's voice hardened. She survived. Vance nodded. Yes. She was the only one curious enough to understand me. Section 176, The Hidden Weapon. Without warning, Vance reached toward a small table. Daniel reacted instantly. Don't move. But Vance didn't grab a weapon. Instead he picked up a small recorder. Section 177, The Last Recording. Vance pressed the button. His voice echoed from the device. Stories need endings. The recording described his entire philosophy. His belief that society ignored the lonely. That he was creating meaning through fear. Section 178, A Dangerous Moment. Suddenly Vance stepped backward toward the attic window. The police realized something terrifying. He wasn't planning to surrender. Section 179, The Final Attempt. Vance tried to jump from the window. Daniel lunged forward. Both men crashed into the floor. The struggle lasted only seconds. Officers rushed in. And finally, the midnight passenger was restrained. Section 180, The Arrest. Handcuffs clicked around Harold Vance's wrists. For the first time in years, the killer was powerless. Daniel looked at him quietly. It's over. Vance simply smiled. Section 181, A Chilling Smile. Even in custody, Harold Vance seemed calm. You think you've ended the story, he said. But stories like mine. They echo. Section 182, The Victims Remembered. Police reopened every missing person case connected to Vance. Amanda Blake. Tyler Monroe. Sophie Randall. Marcus Hill. Their families finally had answers. Section 183, Emily Safe. Emily Ross recovered safely. Her story became a powerful reminder of survival. Section 184, Lily's Reflection. Later, Lily stood outside the police station in Raven Hollow. Daniel joined her. You helped stop him, Daniel said. Lily looked toward the dark road. I just followed the clues. Section 185, The Quiet Town Returns. Weeks passed. Life in Raven Hollow slowly returned to normal. But the memory of the midnight passenger remained. Harold Vance's trial attracted national attention. Every detail of the case shocked the public. His calm demeanor frightened everyone. Section 187, The Sentence. The court finally delivered its verdict. Life imprisonment. No chance of release. The midnight passenger would never drive again. Section 188, Daniel's Relief. For the first time in months, Daniel Carter slept peacefully. The hunt was finally over. Or so it seemed. Section 189, The Hidden Notebook. While cataloging evidence, officers found one last notebook hidden in the Vance house. Inside were dozens of unsolved plans. Targets he had never reached. Section 190, A Chilling Line. On the final page was a sentence written clearly. Every passenger eventually finds their road. Section 191, Lily's Final Question. Lily read the sentence carefully. Then she asked Daniel something unsettling. What if he inspired someone else? Section 192, Silence. Daniel didn't answer immediately. Because he knew the truth. Dark ideas sometimes spread. Section 193, The Locked Cell. In a maximum security prison, Harold Vance sat alone. Silent. Watching the night sky through a small window. Section 194, The Smile Returns. A guard passed his cell. Vance looked up slowly. And smiled again. Section 195, The Letter. Weeks later, a letter arrived at the police station. No return address. Inside was the symbol. The circle with 3 lines. Section